All right, here we are. Welcome, everybody. All right, here we are. Welcome, everybody, to Speakin My Piece, hosted by Dekel Bor, presented by Jazz Times. Each week, Dekel sits down with some of the best jazz artists in the world and chops it up, talking about technique, inspiration, and all things about life. If you're not familiar, Dekel Bor has an album out in 2020 called Let Love Rule, which is a wonderful record, can be found at dekelbor.bandcamp.com. I'm going to check my levels here. Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, enjoy. This program is live on YouTube, Rope-A-Dope, and also Jazz Times and Facebook as well. And please send your comments in. We'll feed those questions straight over to our guest. Today we have the pleasure of chatting with jazz guitarist Peter Bernstein. He's been a part of the jazz scene for a long, long time, it seems, since the 80s, and 9 solo albums, and I think a wealth of information. And I'm just really excited to have 2 guitarists in the room. So I am going to switch things over and say hello to Mr. Dekel Bor. How are you, Dekel?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. So we've been celebrating this album for a minute now. I'm kind of amazed by all the reactions, but we thought that the best way to get to the next one is the old jazz way, which is the way of mentorship. So I'm basically reached out to a lot of my mentors and my heroes and my friends, and I've been picking their brains about whatever I'd like. It's kind of amazing. So today's guest, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, there's almost no one that have command this level of respect from across my peer group. Like everyone that I speak to, all my friends, there's almost no one that we speak to with this kind of regard. It's been a cultural hero for like 30 years now. And so let's just jump in it. Pete, how are you?
Hey,
So happy to see you.
thanks for having me, boy. Thanks, man.
How have you been? How's Aaron? How's the boys? How are the boys?
We're hanging in there. You know, we're lucky to have a good spot here that we can stay in here in New York City. Didn't have to flee. So just, counting my blessings every day. No traveling, just home every day. So they're seeing a lot.
That must be nice, right? Family-wise.
That is nice. I mean, to see, when I think about, like, if I'm gone, 30% of the year, 35% over years of a kid's life who's 13, that adds up to, some years.
Right.
So this has been a year to make up seeing my boys every day.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. How's my man Bruno doing?
Bruno's good.
All right. So this past year that you had all this time on your hands, are there a couple of albums that gave you inspiration that you can share with whoever's watching? Things that you just dig and make you feel good?
Wow, you mean things I've discovered in this past year? I can't, it's been like the community has completely changed. So groups, coming out, or people that were doing gigs, presenting new music, I would go hear it in clubs sometimes. And
Right.
I kind of have some awareness through Facebook of what people are doing, but it's kind of been it was, a few months of just sorting it out. But I don't know. I'm always, finding,
It doesn't have to be new. Whatever that makes you tick.
Wow. I'm trying to think. It'd have to be recent, because I'm always hearing my kids turn me on to stuff too, like some new pop music and stuff like that. They kind of got me into Anderson .Paak.
Oh, right.
But they turned me on to some other songs, and but all kinds of stuff. Just going back and hearing some Art Blakey Jazz Messenger records again, and really noticing details that I didn't notice when I listened to them a lot. When I was coming up and kind of learning the language, really listening to records that I love and listening to the comping, listening to how the piano players are accompanying all the melodies and solos, and kind of trying to go back to music that's familiar to me, but listen to it on deeper level, because it's
Yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about. So I had to think that what you just described me, I had that experience today. I was listening to you. The first time I heard you, I must have been 16 or 15. 70, something like that. And that was on the Josh Redman album. I mean, that was one of the first that you could get anywhere. I could get it in Israel.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
listened to Pantomime, the famous solo. And I mean, that's like a solo that I learned as a kid. And I remember picking your brains about it when we first met. I mean, probably like a couple of years after. And
I must have been so surprised you were asking me about that that I just kind of forgot all about it. It just like I'm surprised again now. It's like,
I'll get to that in a
okay,
minute. But
but that's funny.
But Ben, I was listening today, and I swear to God, I'm going back tomorrow into the studio and learning that solo again. I mean, it just what you can do with the rhythm section. It's it's nothing short of unbelievable. But
Thanks, man. Well, I appreciate that. I just it's funny. Uh, I mean, I remember being a part of that group, and really, actually, recently I did a little thing, a little Zoom hang like this with Peter Martin, the piano player,
yeah,
Josh's band at that time, and just reminiscing about it. And it was really my first time kind of getting out there on the road and playing music, kind of the similar music, a band book, you know, not the same tunes every night. Would mix it up a lot, but it was like our book, and every night traveling, and just that whole thing was really a unique. I'm looking back on it. It's 25 plus years ago now when we first played, but. And it was about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I guess, of a lot of work and my first time to a lot of places. And it was just I think of it as like a time in my life, and, you know, a lot of, you know, just like being self-conscious about playing and being like seen in this group, like, man, why does he have this gig? Like just where my head was at those times. And I don't really have any recollection of, you know, really how I sounded. I have remembrance of playing with those guys.
well, let me tell you my experience. Like oftentimes, like there would be someone that you idolized as a kid, and you grew up on his playing or on his music, and you look back 20 years after, and some of it was sentiment, or some of it was naivete. But man, I was listening to this solo today. You were young. I mean, this was mid-20s probably. And man, my jaw was on the floor. I mean, it's unbelievable. The whole album, you're playing on the whole album,
That's
and
very
you're also coming into a band. They were a band before that. There was a couple of albums. They were touring before that.
yeah, yeah, and also, yeah, we played for maybe a month or so, and a lot of the music was kind of new. Like we recorded it and then played it more on the road. So the songs, I remember recording them before they were really all that familiar to all of us. But it's funny, the main thing, like you're talking about, like going back to something that you listened to at a certain time in your life. And what's amazing to me is like how our ears change and we hear things differently from a different perspective. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
like you say, certain things maybe like don't hold up, and you just like it was just like a thing of the time, you know. But because your ears are hearing more subtleties and more levels and greater nuance, just hearing deeper into stuff. And that's why I was recently fascinated, just going back and listening to records and really trying to hear things that I wasn't paying attention to, where I listened to these records a lot, because we're both of the generation where it wasn't like YouTube yet. You know, you listen.
I have a lot to say about that, but
I had like 30 records that I really knew really well.
exactly.
And I'm still finding new stuff of guys in groups that I loved around that same time. Just I didn't really know that.
Same here.
And that's a great thing too, like to find some like Water Babies. I didn't really know Water Babies, the Miles record, like I knew Nefertiti and Miles Smiles and the Sorcerer. So to find Water Babies again, and then checking out Miles in the Sky, I'm like, yeah, I don't know these as well. So it's kind of like hearing them new, and I'm hearing different kind of details than I.
How are you listening? Or are you listening on vinyl, on CD, on streaming? Like what's when you listen to something?
I'm terrible. Like I don't even when we moved, I lost my clicker for my Bose thing, so I don't even have CDs right now.
Right.
We found the clicker, but now we have to get the cables. This, you know. So
The
I haven't
thing
really
that-
bought a CD. I just listen on my computer, sometimes with headphones if I really can't hear things. But I'm not an audio. I've just never been able to indulge any audio.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, but the thing that I miss the most is like having 4 albums, and
Yeah.
then and I grew up on CDs, and then you swap with one of your best friends, and they give you, I don't know, Sonny Stitt, and you kind of hear Sonny for the first time, or Hank Mobley,
Yep.
and you go with your backpack to school, and you have you have two CDs in your backpack,
Yeah, you
and you
live with
listen to
them.
them over and over and over again.
Yeah, you live with them, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the beautiful thing. But it's also fascinating to me, like if you say you hear things differently, it's just like our ears. That's good. That's our job as a musician is to like our ears are supposed to get more sensitive as we get older. You know, like we're supposed to hear more levels and more just feel more from what we listen to. You know, it's more as you get to know your ears better, it becomes an intense experience. You know,
Absolutely, absolutely.
so important.
So from around that same time of that Freedom in the Groove thing, actually a little bit before then, you became by far the most recorded guitarist of your generation. I mean, it's like I stopped counting after 30 something. I mean, for around the same time, you are on every album to come out of New York.
Well, I was lucky to get involved with Crisscross, and that was like a couple records a year in a way, because he would do a bunch of sessions at the end of the year, and I was lucky to get in and do a date with Brian Lynch, where Melvin Ryan was the organ players, and then he started doing his own record dates every year, and then there was just like a little kind of a stable of people for Crisscross, and I was lucky to get just on a few record dates, and then the Warner Brothers thing, like Larry Goldings got to be on Warner Brothers and Josh was on Warner Brothers, so they were recording people, and there was just seems to be a lot of labels around, and like I caught the tail end, or kind of like but just an active time for CDs being made, and just like there was a lot of recording going on. There was people had some idea that people were out there buying these records, I guess, and
Well, I was buying them,
well,
all of
somebody
them.
was, yeah, a couple of people, but it was just kind of a time where, and it was, the labels were getting young guys and signed like Roy Hargrove and Joshua and Christopher Holiday, and then there were all these kind of little young lion things. So I was lucky to get involved with that, and also get to play with some of the elders. Got my first recording session was with Lou Donaldson, and he would record every couple of years, so I got to make 4 or 5 records with Lou, and just little things here and there. So I was lucky at that time to just get on some records that got my name on some records. But at that time, I just remember feeling like just trying to do the best I could and get a decent sound, and it was just like a day's work. I knew they were kind of like important, but at the same time, I would think, get stressed out about it, the worse I would play. So I would just try to have fun and just like enjoy hanging out with Melvin Ryan for a day.
Right,
I was like,
right.
the day before, and then we record, and I was just like enamored of everything he played, and it was just incredible being around him. So I'm just like, this is a really fun way to spend a day. And I would never listen to the records because I didn't want to hear like how crappy I sounded. But I just kind of just looked at those dates as like, this is really a great way to be able to make a little money and spend an afternoon in recording with these people.
Well, it allowed me and a lot of my friends and my peers and to really get to know your thing in so many different settings. It would with just a lot of different guys, and then I was lucky to visit New York as often as I could. Get my parents to kind of send me, and I came to see you in Smalls. It was with Blade and with Sam.
Okay, so that's like
It was an amazing band. And Ryan was playing trumpet.
right, yeah.
And I was a kid, and I came up to you and said I was probably just shy out of my mind and kind of asking you a lot of questions, and you were like absurdly nice. And then I asked you, for like a lesson or something. You were too busy, and then I got both Russell Malone and Ron Afif to give you a call or something and tell you about me. So then I don't know, for anyone that might not know you, just to the kind of person you are, I was staying with some friends, and there was a message on the machine. I was 17. Hey, this is Pete. I have some time tomorrow. If you just want to hang and play, we can play some duo. And I'm like, So this is the kind of person you are. I don't know if you remember this, but I was like this kid coming to your place.
Memory of meeting you in New York and getting together and playing, of course. And you had your like a 175 or
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah. Just because of you. I got the exact guitar that you had on the cover. I'm seriously, just a blonde 175.
Yeah.
So you gave me an advice that day, coming up to Lou Donaldson, that you said that you try to play with as many of the masters, of the elders as you could. And I really, really took that to heart. When I moved to New York a few years after, I really I chased down every possible master or legend that I could and try to get in the band. And it was really, really from based on your advice. So I'd love to know what's your take on it now that you're what we consider a master yourself. When you look at those people, and we speak about, well, I mean, the list is really endless, but Lou Donaldson, Harold Mayburn, George Coleman, Sonny Rollins, Jimmy Cobb. I could go on and on and on. So when you look about it now, and you can see the younger generation that doesn't put that emphasis as much.
Well, it's just a different time. I mean, the whole time I was, a young whippersnapper, I was thinking like all the people my age and even some people older than me, like we were born too late. We missed this guy and this guy and this guy. So at the time that I mean, don't get me wrong, I knew I was very fortunate to get to see Max Roach and Elvin and Cedar Walton and Tommy Flanagan and Hank Jones and all these people play in person. At the time, I mean, I just remember feeling like when I was a younger guy, like, yeah, I have to get around the people that are connected to the roots of the music, and just was lucky to be, these people, they were my heroes. I got to meet some of them as I went to different schools. Ted Dunbar.
I heard a story of you going up an elevator as a teenager with Lee Konitz records in your arm,
Well,
and Lee was in the elevator or something like that.
Lee lived, yeah, Mr. Konitz, on the 8th floor. He lived in the same building as my family. We moved there like I think 81, and he'd been living there since the 70s on West 86th Street. And we'd been living there for a few years. And another neighbor knew my parents well, and I would see her around, and she'd see me with my guitar. And she's like, I said, I'm getting into jazz, listen to a lot of jazz. And then she told me, oh, if you're into jazz, you got to, Mr. Konitz lives on the 8th floor. I'm like,
Yeah.
he's the guy with the big orange dog, and his wife, Tavia. And I just remember, oh, that's them. I didn't know that, but I had just started to kind of learn about jazz history and read. I remember getting like The Birth of the Cool, and hey, there's Lee Konitz. Like, so I was like thinking, wow, this guy's checking out records that he's on. And I used to go to the Lincoln Center Library and just borrow records, like books. You could just come out, and I would record them and bring them back. It's totally, like Napster scandal, just pirating the music. But I would listen to all this stuff and just on a cassette recorded what I wanted to hear. And I just got a bunch of Lee Konitz records at the library. And I was going up the elevator, and then of course the elevator had to stop on 8. I was going up, but he said, "Hey, I'm on that record," and that's kind of how I met him. I'm like, yes, Mr. Konitz, I'm.
This is priceless.
Yeah, I live on 13 with we have
Lucky
this,
13.
that's and so we were kind of neighbors, but I was maybe 16 or so, and then through. I got to meet Attila Zoller, who was also a friend of Lee. He was kind of a small world. And Attila Zoller, this great Hungarian.
Yeah. What a great musician. The Birds and the Bees, right?
Yeah, that's his tune. Yeah, beautiful. He was an incredible guy. I got to meet Gene Bertoncini when I'm just really young and just trying to learn how to play. I went to the Eastman Summer Jazz Workshop, and that's where I met Gene and studied with him. But that's where I met Larry Goldings. It's where I met Joey Cavacino, this great alto player who turned Larry and all of us onto all this great music. He was like he is an Ellington expert. Knows a lot of music. He's like a hip hop producer now and does all kinds of stuff for the last 25 years. But he's an alto player and played like Johnny Hodges and knew all the Ellington and just schooled us on all this music. So the people, I say this to say that I was just getting a sense of like the history of jazz. Like, what is this thing that laid out before us. You know, this is in
Yeah.
late 80s. The history wasn't even that long then, of course, as it still isn't. And learning about Ellington and putting things into some kind of historical perspective. And I was just aware of who was out there still playing, and people were in their prime. Billy Higgins, Cedar, Jackie McLean, all these guys that got
Wow,
to
wow, 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 wow,
when
wow.
and like at school when we met Jim Hall and Jimmy Cobb, they were 60 years old. They weren't that old. They
Right,
seemed old to us
right, right,
because they were part of jazz history, and we were punks at 20 years old or whatever. 20.
right.
So they did see they were older than us, but at the same time, it was they were still, you know,
Happening, yeah, in the prime, yeah.
they were in yeah, and so generous to all of us and giving of their time. I mean, Cobb was like, get some gigs, I'll play. You know, it's like, okay. So we got ourselves a week at the Village Gate with Brad Mehldau and Weber, and it's like, man, we're playing a week. It was my first time playing a week, and I remember feeling like, wow, that's great. There's tomorrow night, and then there's the next night, and then by the fourth night, you start to feel a little good. You know, like you feeling more like
Loose, yeah.
this is what it is. You're supposed to play every night with this behind, like get as close to the real feel.
So what is it like? I mean, I would always chase drummers down. I mean, I was super lucky to play with Percival a lot, with Louis Hayes, with Billy Hart. I mean, it was always like a thing that I would chase down. And the thing that I remember the most was the size of the beat. I mean, it just seems like,
That's right. Yeah.
which is something that I actually associate with you big time.
Well, I've been working on that. I mean, and that has a lot to do with the drummers that I play with, and just the musicians that you play with that sense of time, that the pulse inherent in what they play creates a feeling. And with drummers able to really kind of get around the music and make all the instruments sound good, you know, or they
Yeah.
can make a lot of noise and make all the instruments sound like they're all fighting each other. It's all when there's a drummer in the band, that is so important. Their sound and how they spread their sound around, but also, of course, as you say, the size of the beat, the width, where everyone is, you know, free.
How do you work on it? I mean,
You know, that's the whole point. That's the whole. You have to feel free to move about the cabin. That's the beauty of like. You know,
wow, 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 wow.
you're in this beat, you know, and then.
I'm gonna steal that line from you, moving around the cabin.
But that was the feeling of playing with Cobb, and yeah, all the great drummers I got a chance to play with.
And I gotta ask you, you have a way of,
besides just drummers, also, you know, horn players that would
of
have.
course,
You know, it's just as.
but I'm sticking with Scott for just one more second. I mean, you have a way of cooking a rhythm section that is nothing short of lost art. I mean, I've seen you so many times just drive the audience to kill them, and especially on the mediums and the medium slows, you have a way of. And I'm always thinking that has a thing with Cobb, because he has a way of moving things. Just
Well, that's.
any light you can shed on that, I'd love
mean,
that.
guys like that, and just they make you feel a certain way about momentum and how it feels. It's an attitude. They're not just walking; they're walking and exuding certain, you know, sensibility and attitude and aesthetic and feeling and vibe, whatever you want to call it. So it goes beyond, you know, the musical part, but there is the musical aspect of really how the notes flow together, how your ideas flow together, how your sense of the form works to manipulate tension and release. You know, drummers do this by dealing with form, and they do this like by their controlling of dynamics. But it's all everyone evokes that. Everyone plays. I mean, if you're playing music that's in time, that has, you know, then that's what it's about, forward motion. If you're playing music that's not even in fixed time, that's rubato, that's still about forward motion.
Yeah.
That's what time is. Time only goes one direction. We can think about what happened 10 seconds ago, but it's in the past, and it gets further and further in the past the longer we dwell on it, you know. But the idea is like time goes one direction, and that's the same thing with music. So great musicians, whatever instrument they play, make you aware of that, you know, sense of flow. So I mean, I try to work on it because I mean, that's what attracts me to the players.
To
I
the
love.
thing, yeah, yeah. So the next thing that kind of happened for me was the way you evolved as a band leader. There was strings of albums. Of course, with the trio was Bill and with Larry, and then you would add some horns, and then you would change it up. And it was kind of amazing to see you grow both as a composer and but also as a band leader, as far as just a vision of where things are going and where the voice of the guitarist sits within that. It was really unbelievable to kind of to see that evolve, and it evolved to this. This album just came out.
Yes.
One of my absolute favorites that I've ever heard by anyone. Um, and if I'm always speaking about it, anyone who's sharing today's stream from the Jazz Times page or wherever, share it, and we're gonna reach out, and one of you guys is gonna win a copy of this. Thanks to the lovely guys and the amazing people at Smoke Sessions.
It's a wrap.
So I want to talk about the band. I mean, it's the first time I kind of hear you with these guys
Yeah.
as a thing. Of
Well, I'd gotten to. I mean, I know Farnsworth for
course.
30 years. We went to school together at William Patterson College, and we played together a lot in the early days at Augie's and in different things. And he's, just incredible musician, very focused, and has totally evolved into, his own thing.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful understanding of and respect of where things come from, but he's his own man, and I just love playing with Farnsworth, and we go way back. Sullivan is someone I've been playing with more in the past 5 years or so. I first heard him play with Roy Hargrove, and I just loved his touch and his like spontaneity and just like how effortlessly things just kind of fall into a very unexpected way that's
Yeah.
totally right, and totally, he's redefining logic while he plays, and I just love that his whole sensibility of, just his ears and everything. So I got to play with him. The first time was at Mehldau. We played a duo, and that was really
All
fun.
right.
And I got him on a few things with the quartet. I remember playing down in Argentina with the quartet.
Was it the same guys on the album?
Well, that was a different group. That was with Peter actually and Billy Drummond. But then I started playing with in a quartet with Doug Weiss on bass, and at first it was Leon Parker. We played a week at the Vanguard, and it was Leon and Doug and Sullivan Fortner, and then Leon lives in Europe as Doug does also. So I started playing. I got Farnsworth to play the Vanguard, and we played actually with Sullivan, Doug Weiss, and Farnsworth at the Vanguard the last week before the shutdown. We played March.
Right. That I remember. Yeah.
Here in New York.
That I remember. Yeah.
And that was it. Then everything stopped, and a couple months later, I get a chance to make a recording, and I have a couple new tunes that I've been messing around with, and I'm like, I don't know, should I make a recording after not really playing much? After 2 months, it's maybe a bad idea, but hey, it's a chance to play, and
Yeah. It's better than not doing it.
yeah, I mean, we were just gonna, should we do it? We can be masked. It's a studio. We're gonna be far out and spread apart anyway. And it's just the only thing is like you can't be one of those long dates. We kind of got to get out of there in 5 hours because that's the vibe was just like, how long should we be indoors? I mean, this was June. Anyway,
Right.
so fast forward to June, and meanwhile, Doug has gone back to Berlin.
Berlin. Yeah.
He was there, and I had got to play with well, I think I heard Peter, and I played with Peter a bunch in different situations, and Peter Washington, that is, and him and Farnsworth sound beautiful together. So I had, I mean, I knew Peter was available, which is very that's not
Very rare. Yeah.
pandemic time to have Peter Washington say, yeah, I'm free. So I was able to put this date together, and we played some of the tunes that Sullivan and Joe and I had been playing at the Vanguard, and so we were kind of relatively fresh. And then I had a couple of new tunes and just some things I wanted to record. So it was really going to be like a risk of we have some standards or some other tunes we can play standing by as alternates, but be really great to do these 5 or 6 originals or whatever it was, and it worked out. I just because we just kind of rehearsed them and then we just recorded them. So it worked out okay. Except, and this is with Peter. He hadn't really played any of the tunes, but you know, he's a quick study, and you know.
Yeah, it for me it's by far one of the best settings that I ever heard you play. I mean, the whole thing has this wholeness to it that is, it's really amazing. It's even more amazing to hear that it just came about in such an impromptu way.
Well, I mean, the way those guys play each one individually, but individually in the way that their sound, you know, works and is flexible, and like it's just they get in there with other people around them. That's the kind of the way they play sound wise, and so I mean that's.
I want to ask you about the tunes for a minute. I mean, the way you compose. I mean, what is it? Is it you on a piano, you on a guitar? Because there's unbelievable tunes on this.
Thanks, man. A lot of them, some of them are piano and I mean guitar, and then I go to the piano to work them out, and then I go back to the guitar to see how it's going to lay to play it.
Right.
And then I go back. I mean, I just try to, you know, mess with the tunes. Sometimes there's like a piano thing, and certain voicings I kind of think are part of the song, but unless it's absolutely necessary, I'd rather have the piano player play their own voicings than just lay out the harmony in a way that it seems to. The tune is, you know, has its own thing. So you want people to bring their own thing. There's one chord I wrote out in the tune, which is like, can you play this
Right.
for this note? And then they play it in a way that, you know, Sullivan will play it in a totally like a different way. And then I heard it anyway. So I'm like, cool. Well, you know, he would have just played something hip no matter what. But, you know, it's just
Right.
I tried to compose in this that I'm writing out as little, you know, specific in maybe a feeling or a vibe, but not specific in what the players are kind of, you know.
So it's melody and change on top
Mostly a couple
kind of thing.
lines, a couple of bass lines on one tune, but
Right.
that was minimal. I try to keep the written part, you know, kind of to what's necessary, and also think about the bulk of the tune is going to be the form that people kind of have to go and loop around again. The harmonic and the changes. If it's not fun to play, I'm not going to want to play it, let alone ask anyone else to play it. So it's kind of
Right.
some level
Right.
of its own. At the same time, you're trying not to just make it like so familiar that everybody, you know, feels they have to do it. You know, like you can
Right.
fine line of how much to write into the tune and how specific it is. And I just kind of try to, you know, write a tune that's not overwritten. It's not that specific, but has a strong vibe and holds together in a form. And let the tune evolve. If you like to play it, people seem not to mind playing it. See how the tune evolves, and that's whatever happens should happen. And the fun of it is playing the same music with different people, just like
Yeah.
play
You've been
standards.
doing that. You've been doing that a lot. I mean, I remember learning Empty Pockets
Mhm.
and hearing you with different people.
Yeah.
And this is something that for my generation, I mean, me and most of my friends, we can tell one of your tunes without even looking on, you know, who's on the credits. And there's another thing that I want to talk about. You're playing "We'll Be Together Again," and you have a way of playing a melody and that's making it come to life that is in the most incredible ways, especially ballads. I mean, there's almost no one that I can think of that can do that's alive somehow. And I'd love to hear your take on this.
Well, I love ballads and I love standards and I love melodies. They're kind of like, you know, you learn it like you're just kind of telling a story. I kind of think of them, maybe not ballads as much, but learning a song, learning a melody is kind of like learning a joke. And then you kind of tell it a few times and, you know, try to make sure you memorize it. And then you try to plan out maybe how you're going to tell this joke with the idea that there's a certain build up, set up, and then of course, there's a place in a joke where you want everyone to laugh, unlike in a ballad. But the idea of how you work up your telling of it, which should change. The more comfortable you get with the joke, the more you can add to it. But if you add to it to the point where it's about you and not serving the joke, then you're only lessening the effect of whatever punchline it might be. So I'm kind of looking at like, playing the song and getting deeper into trying to let the song play itself. But what we have is our sound and the way we hit the notes and our interpretation of it. So I really kind of like enjoy playing songs because it's a chance to like, the words are written out there for you. The notes are there for you. This is the joke. You say this, you say this, you say this, you say, and it's kind of unfolded, and you look for places to personalize it. But it's just kind of enjoying learning the story better, and then enjoying trying to keep yourself from getting bored telling it, so you're not going through any kind of,
Well, for my money, the way you do it is I mean,
Well, I'm
I can
learning.
listen to that all day and all night.
I'm learning about it. It's a very hard thing to do, is really play a ballad. And it's funny, like a lot of students, they kind of say like a question with students a lot of times is like, how do you get your own stuff? And I think it's like the way people are taught. It's like you got to figure out your own stuff to play, and that's true. People have to come up with their own intervals and their own thing. But I think that so much of an identity of someone is in their tone, their touch, the nuances, tiny little phrasing things that are kind of quirks and personality traits and idiosyncratic things. And
I
you
don't think
build that.
people realize. I don't think people realize that having a sound on an instrument, and that's like that would matter almost the most to any audience. I mean, just kind of and which is the first thing that I think about you is that huge sound. It's a beautiful sound, but I don't think people realize that is like, if that doesn't envelop the listener, then no matter what intervals you play.
Well, all the people I love I love their sound, and they sound to me like they play from their sound. But the only point I was trying to make is that you're trying to, as you develop your individuality, whatever, you think it's coming from thinking up new stuff to play, whereas counterintuitively, it's almost like if you work on melodies and work on the way you play a melody, you might find those kind of quirks, because you're kind of limited in a way. You have to tell this story. You have to recite this poem, right? So you find yourself in the little things, the nuances, and trying to.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
the thing for me, ever since I started playing out, and I would have my 175 and my polytone, and some people would be like, "Yeah, your tone's kind of harsh, man." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't like it either." Like, I like Gene Ammons' sound. I like Freddie Hubbard's sound. I like Clifford Brown. I like Miles' sound. How do I sound like that? How do I sound like something I like Billie Holiday? So there's this constant thing of like, trying to work your tools, your instruments and amps and stuff like that to get into some kind of.
I always thought that I always thought the way you sound comes mostly from whatever you hear in your ear, and also from your time feel. I mean, if someone it will always sound brighter, or I mean, the pocket always. It's like an illusion that the ear plays on you, but wherever someone is putting in the pocket would have so much effect on the way the sound of an instrument is.
I think that's true, because it's all about placement, in a way, like where you put your ideas, how you articulate phrases. But the tone of the instrument is something that, as guitar players, we're trying to get kind of a plinkiness out. We want articulation, but what's too far into articulation would be, that kind of tightness. And we want to have it, legato and loose, but what's too far in legato and loose, then there's no so everyone's trying to find the balance according to their own ears. That's why what you say is absolutely right. It's about what you hear, I think that's, and if I'm trying to learn something and I can't really play it, it's more about not being able to hear it in a way than not being able to play it. If I really can hear it, you find a way to
it will come out.
Yeah, to project.
So I want to listen to some albums that I love through your ears for a minute. I mean, we kind of talked about Miles and Cobb, which was the idea, but I was playing in Paris, and you were playing the day after. You were playing trio. You were playing Monk, which I don't know if people notice. It's an album that's very hard to find, but there's one of your albums you're playing Monk with was Bill with Doug Weiss.
Yeah.
For me, that's one of the greatest trios that I've ever heard. That album. So if people can chase that album down,
It's out there
they'll be
somewhere. Yeah.
they'll be singing it for the rest of their lives. But you were playing, and we were just kind of rapping, and you were saying, "Yeah, I just got off tour with playing with the one and only Sonny Rollins."
Oh wow. Yeah.
So I want to talk about your time with Sonny. I mean, what is it like to stand next to that thing and hear it like?
Well, that's the thing. He's not a thing. He's a human being. Like that's the thing that I couldn't. It never got like. I never stopped saying like, "Oh my God, that's Sonny Rollins." Like I just never. I mean, I was around him for like maybe we did about 32 gigs or something over the course of. At first, I was just kind of subbing in the band, and then. But he wasn't really working all that much. He would go out a couple times a year. So that's why over maybe a year and a half or so, we did only 30 gigs. But each time, I mean, and some of the most fun was at the sound checks and a couple of these kind of like little rehearsals where you would kind of have some new tunes and bring it in. Once was a kind of like an audition for a drummer sub because the drummer couldn't make some gigs, so Sonny wanted to get a sub, and our rehearsal was like 3 or 4 different guys coming in and playing for about 40 minutes with us.
All right.
Just walking in the room, there's Bob Cranshaw, there's Sonny, and there's me. And I don't even think maybe Clifton was there, but I can't remember. He was on the later tours that I did with him. His nephew Clifton Anderson, great trombone player, and Sammy Figueroa was there, and that was the thing too for the drummer to lock in with Sammy but it was really deep, like just being around him in those. Playing the gigs, of course, but just those other experiences, rehearsal experiences. The deepest thing, this is my Sonny thing that kind of changed my whole concept of what I was doing, what our job was. We're rehearsing a calypso, and we're trying to adjust the tempo, and we're changing the keys. It didn't really feel right. The drummer was trying to do the right thing, but Sonny wasn't like happy, and he was kind of saying stuff to the drummer to make him play different, and it wasn't working. And something happened, and then it got a little better. Maybe we picked the tempo up or something, and I was like, yeah, that's grooving, that's great, that feels great. Finally, like just a relief of like, because I felt for the drummer too, like he's in a hospital, he knows about Sonny and drummers,
You can see the line waiting for the rest of the.
Another guy coming in after him. That's true. But it was just a moment of like, Sonny was like, yeah, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. That feels good. Let's try it again. And then before we started, the drummer said, yeah, Mr. Rollins, one thing, on this kind of calypso, should the snare drum be open or closed? Like a technical question, valid question, like what sound do you like? Is the snare supposed to be, the loose snare, or is it supposed to be like a tight kind of sound? And Sonny, he thought about it for like, it was a good 25 seconds, which is a long time.
Yeah.
And the vibe had just got much better. It was a little tense before, and then things are good. And then now it's the silence of like 20 seconds. And I never forget what he said. It was, part of it I remember verbatim, and the rest I kind of have, remembered the vibe of what he said. But I know he said, if the music feels good, you can do what you want. You're here to make decisions. That's what you're here for. If you think about it, you couldn't be in a more privileged position. And then he went on to say, I remember he was talking about symphony musicians. There's symphonies full of musicians that have to play what's in front of them and follow the conductor. We're improvisers. We make a decision and make it like, and now I'm kind of ad-libbing, but it's like we make a decision and make it the right decision through, our understanding of serving the music, basically. Like if the music feels good, if you're playing for the music, your whole job is to make decisions. That's what it's about. You make a decision, and and I was but the part about the privilege, because it's like, yeah, with the privilege and the freedom to make your decisions comes great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
So it was like, oh yeah, it's not just about trying to play what I think is hip or what the other guys think is supposed to be hip. I have to realize what I'm doing is, making decisions and appreciate that incredible privilege to be there. I better know what I'm doing. I better understand this piece of music better, because otherwise I'm just kind of like making, I'm blowing off the privilege. I'm not really addressing this freedom that you have to make a decision of how to play a melody, how to voice a chord, how to begin your solo, what kind of shape. I mean, this is you. This is you making decision after decision after decision. And that's what it is. It's not like being hip, but not, or, you know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
what do I want to be? Or, but, and that's kind of, it's the same thing with, it's a lesson beyond playing music. And that's life. You're handed a situation, and now you have to make decisions about and your decisions, that's you, that's what you are. And it affects the music, it affects the whole thing. That's why the first part of, as long as it feels good, you can do whatever you want. So that's a big thing to get to too. How do I
golden rule, yeah.
How do I play with others and make it feel good so that I'm serving the music, and then I can say, all right, now what can I initiate? What can I what do I feel about this? That's me, really understanding that being creative is understanding that incredible gift you're given to make decisions and to choose what you want to do, as opposed to like your choice being made up because you want to be this type of cat with this type of gig. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So easy to come in the false way, but hearing it put in that perspective was like, that's right, man. If you're serving the music and you make an honest decision, what you think is the right thing to do, then that's what
it will be the right thing to do.
Well, it's about having the courage of your convictions and convincing everybody it's right,
So if we're talking about playing with Sonny Rollins, I want to talk about someone that was very important to both of us. I want to talk about Jim.
Right.
I mean, you just cannot bring up the idea of a guitar with Sonny Rollins without talking about Jim. I know that it was really big in your life. It was huge in my life.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear.
I mean,
your thing.
Just to, every much as having the just incredible good fortune to be around Sonny Rollins, I felt that being around Jim Hall and getting to know him. I mean, also as guitar players, he was such like that class that he taught at the New School of Guitar Players was just an amazing.
What was that? When by the time that I met him, like he wasn't teaching at all. So we would just hang out.
I was lucky to catch the very end of, or the beginning kind of, I think, or when he taught at the New School. He did it for a few years, but I was there when he was doing that. And he just taught a class on Monday nights with like 8 or 9 people and him. And I got to take a couple of private lessons with him. I went to his place and played duo, but that's what the class was him kind of accompanying everybody in the class, and then one of us would try to accompany him, or we would play duets with each other, or he would say, let's all work on a little solo thing. It was just like hang out with Jim. But his whole thing was like, wow, everyone's got a different guitar, and I bet you have different strings, and
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
you use this kind of pick. He was just like, wow, the guitar world is so diverse. He's like, it's like its own animal kingdom of just different kinds of diverse creatures.
The thing that always blew my mind about him was 2 things. I mean, for me, it was like a living God on earth. Mm-hmm. So I was literally trying to speak and not just be like
right.
mind blown all the time. But I remember the curiosity. I mean, it was unbelievable. Just he would ask me and he would speak to me as if we're peers or something, which was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he was like, yeah.
And the humor, the sense of humor that will just leave you on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean,
very dry, and yeah, he was hilarious. But I remember that too, the curiosity about everybody in the room, and and somebody would play something that's kind of bizarre, and say, what is that? What are you thinking about?
Yeah.
He would get the student to think about, I don't know. Never thought about what it was, or he would just like, that's a great teacher. Like make the student aware of what they do, and kind of be able to, if not explain it, demonstrate what it is, or what, like,
and also see the beauty in so many different things. Yeah.
But
what was it like What was it like playing duo at his house?
Well, it was just like a lesson where we would just kind of play a tune, and that's what the class was too. He would kind of comp. That's why I wanted to take a lesson with him too, privately. Of course, we all did, but in the class, he would just comp for everybody. And I remember feeling like, wow, this is the best rhythm section I've ever played with. Like the whole thing, it was all like it was really quiet and everything because we were just playing. He played really quiet if he was just in a small room, and but you could hear everything, all this movement. He was instigating all this stuff and but making you sound good. Everyone sounded better than they actually sounded playing.
Absolutely.
And I was like,
Yeah.
what the? It's not just one guy or it's everyone. Everyone sounds better. Then we would play with each other, and that would be like, oh, that's how we really sound. Like this, like he had a way of just like raising everyone's level to me, and I was like, that's beyond.
For me, you're doing that as much as anyone who ever lived. I mean, having played with you, I know that you have a thing about it, but I never
Well,
got to play with him. I would just go to his house.
yeah,
I try to take lessons, and I just like I did with you, I got like Reggie Workman to call him and say, "Can you teach this kid?" And he just wouldn't take anyone anymore. I mean, that wasn't even an option. And then I realized that I lived like a few blocks away. Like I would just see him on the street with Django, with the dog.
look at this dog.
And I realized that around like 7 a.m. he's out. So I
Right.
started waking up early and just kind of like, hey, Mr. Hall,
That's right.
what are the odds?
That's right. That's right.
And I got
That guy you won't give a lesson to. No, but
exactly.
the lessons. One of the lessons I remember was just like I was trying to learn my ideal, and I kind of wanted it. You know this one. He was like kind of remembering it. It was like remembering how it went. We played it in a few different keys. I remember, and then the song came back to him. He remembered the words, and he told me like he kind of showed me the words of the song, and I was like. I'm gonna write this down. I took some paper out of my bag and I'm gonna write these words down because I wanted to capture that. I hadn't found a record where you couldn't just Google like, vocal version of, you had to go on record and find it. So I was like, I'm gonna write these words. I don't want to forget them because it was like the way he remembered the melody had everything to do with the words because he was of that generation where that was what it was. It was a song with words. So it's not just da 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 da. That is that. Because of will I ever find the
Yeah.
It's a phrase. And so like, oh, the words are important. To get the sense of the syntax of the melody, the words are important. And just the way he went through it and found voicings and found little things. And I was like, he like taught me a thorough way to learn a tune. Like he just laid it out for me, not even meaning he was just remembering the tune himself, but it's like, and then we played, let's try it. He was like, let's try it in this key. It's a short tune, it's like kind of like
I had a huge moment with
stay
him.
with me. That was the lesson. I was like,
Yeah.
oh. And it was my ears were so open after that up to like, man, it's about absorbing all the little details of every little thing that you're doing. You don't have to know a zillion tunes. Just understand how the tunes work. And he
Yeah.
showed me that and I'll never forget, like I always associate that tune with him because he kind of really taught it to me. But I mean, we were lucky. Yeah, we got to see him play many times. Just that
Yeah.
was the lesson.
Absolutely. I would go like every night at the Vanguard or something. But I get to spend a lot of time with him. In the last 5, 6, 7 years of his life, and I would go and visit him at the house, him and Jane, and he would let me play for him. I never got to play with him or never heard him play in a room, but he would let me play for him, and he wouldn't say much. I would always try and pick his brain, but he had such humility. Like I would ask about the band was with Odd Farmer or the band was Sonny, and he would never want to go into it just because he was too cool for that.
Right.
But I remember I played The Nearest of You once,
Hmm.
and I made a mistake, and I tried to mask my mistake somehow. And he said in the most nonchalant way, he said that he would play that with Ella Fitzgerald, and she always liked that specific part. And that was a huge lesson for me to never ever take any part of the tune for granted. I mean, to never kind of not leave any corner or
Right.
nothing.
Yep. The way he dealt with the details. I mean, the way he comped and the feeling that he gave you when he comped for you was like a lot of course, there's choices involved of voicings and the rhythmic feel. He always would say the right hand is like the cymbal, you know, like that's the thing you got to make them, you know.
Do you remember? Going to the Vanguard, and he would comp with the guitar turned off, and you would hear him from across the
You'll
room.
hear it. Yep, I know. That's the
Unbelievable.
magic room. But he did project, and to hear him project in that room, just in like playing with him, was amazing because it was such a beautiful sound. And besides the craft involved of knowing the song so well and knowing how to comp and how to voice lead and this and that and when to pedal and all this beautiful stuff he would do, it was the deeper thing of the larger thing, the human thing of just like pure, like playing with generosity, like compassion. Like that's how you comp for somebody, is by not just knowing what to do, but the truly wanting them to sound good. Like that real empathy, generosity. I really felt that being around him, and he had that for everybody in the class. Like you say, no vibe. Oh, this guy's sad or this guy's not. You know, no like I'm so and so and I'm playing. Everybody he played with, he didn't know any other way except to just like make the best of this sound. I remember him telling a story once about like playing music and people would talk about, you know, playing in different cult situations and this and that. He said, once I played a gig with Hank Jones, and they gave him this horrible horrible piano to play on the gig. It was like some function, a party or something. And he said this piano was just on its way out, and Hank Jones just played it so beautifully all the way out of tune until it just like he made it sound like Hank Jones just played this thing and just like put it to sleep, like with his. But that comes from beyond the mechanical thing of, you know, what string, what fret. It just comes from
Absolutely.
just like I'm gonna, you know, it's just beauty, you know, just to really. He had that aesthetic, so that was the thing, you know. I feel so lucky to have been around and just to feel that, you know, someone playing for you that's like for you. That's how you want to play for people.
Yeah, I really associated all of that with you, as well as the thing that he had that also you, for me, embodied big time, is that if I ever would want to have a big head about anything that I ever did or played, I could never do that because you guys are like, just, we were talking about the nicest people that ever lived. If you're ever a little short with someone, I already feel like an asshole because I'm not as my heroes are, but
Right?
listen, man, I don't want to. I could go on for forever and
Yeah.
be your mother, but I have a lot of albums that I want to talk to you about. Graham
Okay.
Greene, I have Smoking at a Half Note, I have Jimmy and Wes, I have Diana Krall that I've seen you with her a couple of times. There's a lot of albums here. Let's talk about let's just before I let you go, let's talk about Brad Mehldau. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you guys are like brothers in arms in so many ways, and you grew up together, and it's really like, and you have a really, really special pocket together. And I'd love to hear it from your, you know,
Well,
what does it sound like from your ears from the bandstand? Because
I met him from when the new school. He came in, I think, a year. He's a little younger than me. I mean, I think maybe he was the second or third. I came to the school in the third year. Anyway, he was in there the first year that Christopher Holiday came to the school. Brad was there, and I think I remember the first time I heard him from behind a door, playing with Holiday. They were playing some rhythm changes in the duet, and I recognized Chris right away. I'm like, who's playing piano? And I just like this guy with the way he accompanied Chris, and like he took the solo. Like, this guy's incredible. His time feel is so great. Just solo. I mean, playing a solo by himself, and then Chris came back in there. It's like, wow, just listen outside the door for a minute. And that was Brad. The first time I heard him. But we were in this class together at the new school with Jimmy Cobb. It was rhythmic development with Jimmy Cobb, which he just played with us. It was an electric bass player. And Brad and me and a couple of horn players, and maybe Chris was in the class too. And we just played with Cobb. And I got to hear Brad, and I was just like, this guy's just an incredible musician and just, you know, just a complete natural. And just the sweetest guy. We used to hang out, and you know, it was just like we were all just studying music, listening to records. Brad had a lot of, like, he was into rap, you know, hip-hop music, and turned us on to some other stuff. And, you know, we were turning him on to, you know, but we would all hang out, Goldings and Spike Wilner and Brad and Sammy. Hell, we were all kind of just buddies. And Brad was just phenomenal, and he got his trio together pretty early. around the same time we were playing with Cobb at the Village Gate. He would play with Leon Parker and Ugana. That was his first
Yeah,
trio.
yeah, I remember that trio. Yeah.
Then he went on the road with Christopher Holiday, but I mean, he was quickly doing his own thing, and then Larry Goldings got his time to do a thing for Warner Brothers. That was our group, and then Brad got to make his first record, and Brad was just off and running.
That always seemed like a very special time in New York for me. I mean, kind of listening to you guys through records. Brad once told me that you guys would have those sessions up until the morning up at the corner bistro, like playing
They had a great jukebox.
track after track or something. I mean, it seemed like a very, very special time of people that have a lot of passion in common for the music.
We were lucky that at the age of 22, 23, whatever, however old we were, 24, around that time, that we could just go out and hear the masters that we could, and go out and play and try to get our own little spots to play. And there were older guys to try to play with, and we're just lucky that it wasn't just a freaking pandemic. And that could have happened then too. I mean, we're just looking back on, you're always lucky when you have some time to just think about music or whatever it is you want to think about all day, and that's your life, and trying to get better. And it was a deep time because things were starting to, people were getting out there. Brad wasn't just our little secret, this guy's heavy. Larry was on the road with Maceo, and Bill Stewart was playing with Schofield. And it was starting to do stuff.
Right.
I just remember, as I still feel, only slightly a little bit less now because we're just older, but it was just damn, I want to keep up with this. I want to try to get around the guys and that I love their playing and work on stuff and try to get our own gigs. And it was just we can do this. There's gigs if and it was just trying to get better, trying to learn how to present a set of music. I mean, that was a long time for me. I'm still working on it. Of how to be. Present something to people.
Man, I'm gonna finish by telling you that there's really no one. I mean, there's maybe two other people that ever lived that I look up to as much as I look up to you. I swear to God, man. I mean, there's everything that I want about being, a musician in the deepest sense of it. That for me, you're like.
Oh, thanks, man. Man, I'm proud of you, man. Look, you're doing your own thing, and it's all about
I'm just trying to sound like you, but I can't, and somehow I got a record deal for it.
Oh, you're smart. You're smart. People. Everyone has to kind of take account of I'm this, so let me be this, and that's just kind of a very inarticulate way of putting it, but it's maybe a cliche way is people, how they come of age, how you just kind of stop being a kid, wondering, is this enough, or you just say, all right, it's time to just live in my body and keep my mind open, and just say this is, and be honest with you. I mean, but you have to work. You have to work on it because I just feel and you say what keeps you humble is just these people that I got to meet, they were humble, so
Actually, the music keeps me humble because I did a recording session yesterday and I listened to the tape and it was that simple. But
it's difficult. It's difficult to just simplify playing music where it's like a baseball player is just simplifying the game. See the ball, hit the ball. If you have a glove, see the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball to the right. It's very simple. Of course, baseball is a game that it's not simple. There's many different situations and many things are involved in hitting the ball. Seeing the ball is a big thing too. It's do I really see the ball? I'm swinging at it, but I don't, if I hit it, it's just, is it luck or am I really seeing the ball? So it's the same thing with music.
Listen, I don't know much about sports.
Me neither.
I really don't. But I do know that to do what you do, especially you brought up YouTube earlier, and I'm going to make you blush for the last time today.
Oh, good.
People go on YouTube and they put an endless amount of notes into whatever, but to be able to do what you do with a ballad or with a rhythm section or to an audience, I've seen it. I've been in a club. to seeing you cook them into oblivion. I mean, it's really, it's to me, and I know that I'm trying to do the same, and it's as if it's holding this ball in the air, and to be able to do that in such a way over the course of 30 years of, I don't know, 50 something, I don't know how many, 80 albums, I don't know how many you're on, with everyone the mother knowing probably 600 tunes while having the greatest guitar sound in the past 50 years.
Uh, You're very kind. I just feel like I'm lucky to get to do this for, 35 years now, basically just trying to learn how to get a sound and swing and play good ideas. And that, like, after 30 years, there's like every once in a while I'll see a glimmer of hope. Like, okay, you might actually be able to put 8 bars together someday, 16 bars, maybe a whole chorus. Who knows? Like, I do feel lucky that I can keep trying, and that's kind of how I feel. Mesmerize an audience. I'm there every time I play, and all I remember is like the times I played it solo, and it's just like nothing. Like, that's cool because it doesn't. And that's what So I don't really look at it as like it's the process of getting closer in touch with your machine and the process of getting closer in touch with your ideas. That's our job as improvising musicians, and that's what it is. And if they love you, great. If they don't even pay attention, if they don't notice you, it doesn't. It's really you have.
It's not about that. I get to play the guitar every day. It comes down to that.
That's what it is. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. It's a toy. We get to play with toys. I remember Jim Hall would say he had that. I think he might have got. I don't know who he was quoting when he said it, but maybe it was just somebody that he met at some gig, like some guy saying, and he took it to heart. Like, it's like, yeah, you sure can have a lot of fun with them musical instruments. It's just like, and the way he said it was kind of like, maybe he said it like, this is a guy who was like, just trying to say something encouraging to the band. You sure you can have a lot of fun with those musical instruments.
Well,
and it's like, that's what I'm saying by simplifying the whole thing. It's like, it's just about having some fun with it, and of course you don't have much fun if you don't feel like you're getting better. So that's the part that helps keep it fun.
you're putting it in a very nice way, but what you're doing is so profound, so endlessly profound. Listen, we only talked about music today.
Beautiful.
But
next time,
you're my absolute hero when it comes to friendship, parenthood, mentorship.
thanks.
I thank you for coming, and I love you, and we send our love to Aaron and the boys and you guys, and
Thank
I
you.
wait for this to be over and we can
Yeah.
be together again.
I'll see you in. Hope to see you in Berlin one of these, maybe later in the year.
You'll see, absolutely, but you'll probably see me in New York before.
Okay.
Anyone who's watching, get Pete's new album. It's unbelievable. Next week we have Ben Wendell, so tune in, and we hope to see you soon. Stay safe.
Ciao.